All right. So today we have David. I'd like for him to go ahead and introduce himself.
Hi, Rashawn. Hi, everybody. My name's David. I currently look after my mummy who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in, I think it was 2013. So myself and my two dear sisters, we share responsibility. Of course, that was all before COVID-19 hit us, which was, it had a major impact on myself and us all. So yeah, that's where we're up to at the moment.
Okay. And so how has the pandemic affected your current caregiver sort of responsibilities?
Well, it was quite harsh. So, like I was saying before, our caring world was between me and my two sisters. So we had a sound, things put in place. Whereas, mummy would go and stay with my sisters, I'd come and stay with her, and it was manageable. It worked for us. And then, of course, we were hit like the whole world was hit by COVID-19. Then we had to think fast, because what we were thrown into a situation then was mummy, she has all the illnesses, which, I won't go into, but she was, I don't know if it's the same over there, but people were put into categories. Okay. And mummy was deemed to be extremely clinically vulnerable, bit of a mouthful. Okay. Which basically means people who were, that highly vulnerable, they had to shield, and they couldn't have any contact with anybody whatsoever. They couldn't go out. They had to basically be in lockdown. And then we needed to make a decision, because mummy, she can't live independently. Now, the difference between me and my sisters is that they've got their own families, bless them. I've got no commitments. So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to come home and I'm going to stay with mummy. And that's what we did. So I've been back in mummy's house with her. I call her mummy. Back in her house with her since, I think it was the 23rd of March. Wow. Literally me and mummy, no contact. We had food delivered to us by the local government and volunteers. And yeah, I mean, I think I can honestly say it's been the most challenging thing I've ever done. I wouldn't have had it any other way, but yeah, very, very challenging. But yeah, but that's what we got to do. What else can you do?
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I mean, that's a story of resilience for sure, and making the most out of that situation. And okay, in terms of your mom, how long has she been living with this diagnosis?
Okay, so I'm sure you'll hear the same stories. In around about, I was leaving for London, so I'm in Liverpool now. I'm sure you've heard of the Beatles over there. And I work and live in London. And just to show you the demographics, it's about 250 miles away.
Okay.
So I was I was moving to London. Everything was fine, and this is around 2009, 2010. And again, and a lot of your viewers watching this will relate to this. Just minor things were going on, confusion, losing keys, minor things like forgetting appointments, but things you just do not realize. You don't realize at the time that there's an issue going on. You look back in hindsight, is a great thing. All the things you could have done differently, but you just didn't know. Things progressed and really progressed till my sisters, they eventually, done what, had the appointments and went to see the specialists. And yeah, in 2013, I believe she was diagnosed then. I didn't actually attend. And it was I was quite defiant on this. My sister said, we're going to get the results. And I said, you know what? I don't need to know. I don't need to be told the results. I knew for sure this is what it had to be. I don't even know, there's different forms of Alzheimer's and dementias. I don't even know what she has. I don't even know what stage she is. And that's an active decision on my part, because I just take each day as it comes. I don't want to think, okay, in 3 months' time, this is going to happen. We're very lucky as a family. We're very lucky as a family to be able to manage her illness, because there's so many people out there that, don't have the support mechanism, as the family that we've got. So I probably do think a bit off-piste, as it were. But you know what? It works for me and it works for us, and it works for mummy, which is the most important thing that we do.
And I think you brought up a really good point there about you guys having the family resources in terms of numbers to offer support. That's
Yeah.
something that a lot of folks actually don't have the opportunity, and some do. Do you mind going into, for example, caregiving with your two sisters and yourself versus yourself, how that sort of affects the mental workload, the physical workload, everything?
Do you know, I think, and I described it to one of my colleagues who laughed. I said, it gives mummy a bit of a break from each other.
Mm.
And the reason I say that is because there's been days where, mummy's just, there's only a certain amount of things you can do when you're in lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
There's only certain programs I can put on. There's only certain things, excuse my phone. There's only certain programs we can watch. There's only certain stories we can tell. And you need to break it up. You need to break things up. The hardest part about being in lockdown is not being able to get her out there. Mummy used to love going to the shops or the mall and, engaging with people she doesn't know and seeing all the sights. She loved that. So pre-COVID, as I'll call it, before the virus hit, we'd all do 4 days each. So I'd come back from London, I'd spend 4 days with her. And to be honest, me and mummy, we just had a good laugh, because I don't have commitments. We could do that. We put the songs of the 50s on. We used to watch the old films together. We used to do all that together. Whereas she goes to one of my sisters, and my sister's got children who've got children. So then mummy could engage with the grandchildren. She used to love doing that. So I think it mixed it up a bit, and it worked for us. That, it really does. But I think you said something really important, because some of the stories that I read about some people, they're just harrowing. They really are. There's people who are just on their own. They've had to put a loved one away. There's people who are living with this illness on their own. They've got no family, and it really is. So I really, I do consider myself lucky. But again, I said to you before, spreading the awareness, I think really, really means a lot, because there's some people out there who's probably with family member who has it, but just does not realize they've got it. They don't realize. Going back to before mummy was diagnosed, and this is only human. Gosh, I used to argue with her all the time over minor things. And, we'd argue like families do. There's nothing bad about it. And I look back and think, oh my gosh, what have I done? Because she was obviously suffering from the illness then. But, I'm not to blame. People who do that are not to blame. We're only human. And you know what? There's no right or wrong in this illness. It literally is. Take each day as it comes and see what happens.
Well, no, thank you for sharing that. It's
No, it's fine.
Yeah, and I think it's a very real experience leading up to a diagnosis, understanding those changes in behavior and sort of rationalizing it. It can be tough. For some, for example, a diagnosis is something that they're craving just to be able to sort of understand the next wave of how they're going to develop this relationship.
Sure.
So,
yeah. I mean, I'll. There was a time I didn't accept it. So you've got two ends of the brush here. So I knew she had it, but then I'm her baby boy, I'm her baby son. You don't get closer than me and mummy. So I just did not accept it. And when I look back, it's because I didn't want to accept it. You've got my mum, who is a fiercely independent lady. Socialites, used to go out on the scene with the girls, fiercely independent. And now something was happening that was taking it away from her. I literally, it took me a while to accept it. And it's something I want to share with you guys because it's very important, and that's acceptance. Because it was an ex-partner of mine, actually. It was his mum, and we sat down one day, and she literally said to me, it's not going to go away. You're not going to change it. It's not going to go away. So you can either carry on fighting it, which is causing you distress, and it's causing mummy distress, or you can just go with it. And you know what? Something really, really hit home with that. And the day I accepted it, it was life changing, because it allowed me to then go into mummy's world with her. And as it's progressed through the years, I'm in that world with her, you know. And yeah, it's very important acceptance, albeit I can totally understand how hard it will be for some people, you know, because it was hard for me, you know. And you know, I guess I did go off the rails a little bit along the way. I mean, thank goodness I got through it. But yeah, my heart does go out to people. But again, I go back to why I'm doing this with you, because the importance of sharing our experiences is vital in the fight. In the first stages of the fight, it really is vital.
Sure, and I think, like, to build off that, we'll take a quick tangent from the questions here. Is that's really what my goal for our platform of memories is, outside of the
Sure.
application. But what we're looking to do through social media is to connect with. There's so many caregivers on Instagram, for example, and all these different programs that are doing support. But it seems like everyone's hitting their niche audience, people that they connect with, and others. But whereas there's maybe 50 voices going to 50 different people, all 50 people could benefit from hearing one voice. So I think that's really what we're trying to do. So I appreciate you chatting with us to be able to increase awareness. So I think you also brought up a really nice point where you mentioned your closeness with your mom. I'd love to know how that has sort of evolved in your relationship with her during all of this.
Sure, yeah. Maybe going off a little bit, but I'll just give you an introduction how me and mummy came together, because mummy's not my, she's not my biological mother. So mummy, bless her, she decided to give back to people who, you know, she thought needed, you know, help or whatever. So many years ago, she became an emergency foster carer. And, you know, she took in newborn babies that were either abused, abandoned, or simply didn't have anywhere to go. Looking back through all the photographs from many years ago, she must have had hundreds of foster babies. They used to go to mummy, and then they'd be taken off a few days later and put with permanent, you know, families. So I came along, and the story goes that I went to mummy at 7 days old, because I needed somewhere to go. You know, I'll go into the details. 7 days old, I went there, and apparently I was just left with her. And when I was 4 years old, the local social services came back and said, we're really sorry about that. We've now got somewhere for him. Now, obviously, mummy's like, hang on a minute. This baby came to me as a 7-day-old child. He's now my son. And that's the end of the story. And that's how it did. And, you know, she fought for me. It was quite controversial then, because I'm mixed race. Mummy's not mixed race. Mummy's white, I suppose, quite middle class. All the family are white. But she fought for me. And, you know, it's quite ironic, really, because she always used to say to me that when I was a baby, when social services were there, she used to say, I'll never let you go. It's quite ironic, because there's photographs that I have of me and mummy now, when I'm giving her a hug or whatever, and I say to her, mummy, I'll never let you go, you know? So it's sort of gone through the full spectrum, really. Wow. Yeah, we just have a bond. I don't know how to describe it, really. I'm the only one she identifies as. I'm the only one she's never forgotten my name. Okay. She knows who I am, unfortunately, and it's so devastatingly sad. I can't say that about my sister. I mean, again, my darling sister takes it all in her stride. And I'm very conscious not to go into other people's lives. But yeah, mummy knows who I am. You know, I'll say, have you forgot me yet? We'll have a joke. Humour's very important to me and to mummy. So we'll have a laugh about it. But yeah, is it because we have a special bond? Who knows? But out of us all, I was the one she used to see the least, because I'd moved to London. Okay. So one would think I would be the one who perhaps would go first, but no, still there with her, you know, still recognises me. For how long, who knows? But, you know, I'm certainly still there with us now. And yeah, we've just got this amazing bond. I mean, to be able to do the things I do, it's all good and well, you know, me posting the good days where, you know, I'm having a laugh, I'm doing a hair, but, you know, there's some there's some times which are quite challenging, you know, when she'll have an accident. I don't mind saying it because it's only human.
Mhm.
She'll have an accident, and I'm the one who will have to you know, clean her up,
Mhm.
make her you know, decent again.
Mhm.
There must be some bond for her to allow me, you know, her to do that. You know, I think a lot of people think of carers as, you know, females or the nurses, the girls.
Mhm.
There's a lot of us men out there as well who you know are there for our voices to be heard as well. So yeah, we have a bond.
Okay. Now, I guess you mentioned humor as well. Do you think
Ah,
what are the things that really bring, if you could tell, the most joy in her day versus when I would say things aren't going as well, maybe mentally or just in terms of how the day is handling? What's your way of understanding that and moving forward?
well, again, I just have this ability to go into her world. You know, there's some hilarious moments. Do you know what fascinates me is some of the conversations I have with her.
Mm,
So, for instance, she'll ask if we can go and see her mum.
mm,
Now, bear in mind, mummy is now 81. Her mum would be in the hundreds.
mm,
And it's funny because I'll say to her, mummy, who am I? And
mm,
she'll say, you're my son, David. And I'm saying, okay, and if I'm your son, David, where's your mum in this? Because you would be my age.
mhm,
Oh, no, no. I said, oh, you know, your mummy's died. Well, no one told me. And she'll still, and it's hilarious. I
mhm,
have to laugh.
mhm.
And then she'll start laughing with me, you know, just things like that. It's all about humor. You have to, you have to inject humor into it. The saying we have over here, I'm sure you've heard it. If you don't laugh, you will cry.
Mm.
I mean, that,
That's
that
powerful.
that is very powerful. If
Mm,
you don't laugh, you will cry. And crying is not going to achieve anything.
mhm,
You know, gosh, listen, there's days when, yeah, you know, I'll go and have a little cry to myself. It does the world of good.
mhm,
But doing it in the fact, doing
mhm,
it in the fact of, you know, the situation,
mhm.
it's not going to help. So yeah, gosh, I could go on. There's so many different stories about different things, but there's just too many. But humor plays a great part in it. You have to.
Okay. And I guess building off of that, for somebody who's newly becoming a caregiver, for example, what are some tips that you would give them, and sort of, I would say, advice to manage that transition of like family member to a care provider, and then how to
Sure.
sort of mitigate the stress?
Yeah. Gosh. I think looking back over my transition, the, the best key of advice I could give is, and again, it doesn't grow overnight, is patience.
Mm,
It's all about patience because, you know, there's days in the early days where mummy was having problems sleeping. I mean, we've got over that now, but gosh, I'd be up 4 5, no, maybe 3 or 4 days, all night, then all day. And you know, if you can, you need to keep your patience, because if you don't have that patience, then mentally and emotionally it's going to affect you, which then will ultimately rub off on the person you're giving care to. So just a lot of patience. And you know, I see a lot of, it's not so much programs pre-virus. Again, I say pre-virus. I remember being out and I seen a lady, and I think it was her dad she was with, and I could see every symptom of this gentleman having early Alzheimer's or dementia, you know, and she wasn't getting it. And I just wanted to go over to her and say, listen, here's my number here. I didn't, because number one, I was with mummy, and number two, I didn't think it was appropriate in the circumstances. I just think there's a lot of people out there who need
mhm,
people like me to speak out and say, you know, there's support mechanisms out there. There's people like us who are asking people to get in touch with us. Just do it. But a lot of patience. Yeah, that's the best thing.
okay.
Patience.
Okay, and I think that actually raises a good point where in some cultures and areas, there's a lot of research and support and understanding and awareness for Alzheimer's and dementia and different memories impairments. But in other places in the world, sometimes symptoms like these get bucketed into diseases of old age. And there's just not a lot of vocalization of what's happening. And then there's internalization of these issues within a family, almost to shield the individual, and the outside perspective is something
Mm,
that's seen in various communities. And I think this also speaks to the awareness part, where understanding that this isn't a normal aging process, and that things there can be some support, and understanding what's happening is key. So
Yeah. I mean, when I decided to start documenting my journey on social media, and at first, I wouldn't say it met criticism.
mm,
A few people close to the family said, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that." And I was quite adamant. I was like, you know, this needs to be
mhm,
this needs to be documented. People need to do it, because this is what's happening. You know, this is a real life thing. And you mentioned something very important there, because yeah, you know, the reason we're having this epidemic
mhm,
of this illness, and let's make no bones about it,
mhm.
there's millions and millions around the world, thousands of people dying of this daily. You know, the reason we're having it is because technology and medicine have allowed us to live longer.
Mhm,
You
mhm,
know, so back in the days of perhaps when mummy was a girl, you know, growing up in the 40s and 50s, you know, if you lived to 65, 70, gosh, you were,
mhm.
you know, you'd hit the jackpot. And that's when people had it. So that's why it was put down as, oh, it's just an age thing, an old age. No, now is the time. It needs to get out there. And I don't have the answer to, yeah, you say cultures and, you know, different places in the world. I don't have that answer, but we can just do our little bit and just get it out there. I mean, again, the government needs to step up about it, because again, I think along the way they missed it. You know, this should have been gripped many, many years ago before it actually has been, because again, even then it was just thought of old age.
Mhm.
But now so many people are getting it, and a lot younger as well. I mean, I was reading statistics the other day, you know, people in the 40s,
Mhm.
people in the 40s are being diagnosed with it now, and still there's really not happening. You know, I read this awful story of someone who literally, I don't know if this is still happening, but had to sell her own home
Wow.
to provide, so she could go in a care home.
Wow.
So she's lived independently all her life, and unfortunately her family can't look after her, so all her life's earnings have now gone,
Mm.
simply because she has to go in because she's got an illness.
Wow.
You know, awful. Let's just fingers crossed,
Mhm.
you know, other cultures and different parts of the world do start to grip it.
Okay, and two questions, I guess, will build off of that. So, one, has the care home scenario ever come into the question for your family, and what are your thoughts on that?
Um, Again, I'll go back to what we said earlier on. As a family, we are very lucky and very
Yeah.
privileged. So, you know, we have a big family and we're able to manage it. And also, I guess that falls in line with the type of
Hmm.
Alzheimer's mummy's got, because, you know, she's very calm. You
Hmm.
know, she doesn't present a real problem. She doesn't present a problem to herself in that, you know, she's not, although she is mobile, you know, she's not going to get up and run 100 miles for sure. So there's a lot of factors that enable us to be able to look after her. Um, you know, if there was any such time where we couldn't do that, of course we would be open to that. But again, you've got to look at the things that frighten so many people. The fact that how much it costs for a start,
Hmm.
you know. So you're
Absolutely.
talking, you know, people with property, that all goes, because I believe it's means tested as well, you know. So people again are too scared to approach the authorities because of the reasons
Mhm.
that shouldn't be there in my eyes, you know. So yeah, we're very, very lucky to be able to be managing it ourselves. Will there come a time I think we need to do that? I mean, I hope not, but you know, we would be open to it, because it's what matters. But yeah, but yeah, we're able to manage very good at the moment.
Okay. And then in terms of sort of tools and support that you're currently using, you and your family used before when everybody was sharing the responsibilities, are there specific ones that you use? Are there, like, I would say, either tech tools or maybe community resources or social support groups, anything that offers value?
Yeah, I mean, I looked into everything.
Hmm.
Again, you have to go back and you have to understand what form of dementia or Alzheimer's the person you were looking after has it. What I used to find with mummy, if I used to, I keep the same routine. So I know we get up at the same time. Before we go to bed, we watch the same film each night because she doesn't remember. She just loves the film. You know, so I keep the same routine. When you go off piece, if mummy got too excited, that created problems. So for instance, I wanted to try and take it to a community thing that was held for sufferers of dementia. But I just knew at the time she may enjoy it, but later on, you know, she would go very erratic. I used to try and take her places. And if you can imagine, I used to describe it to my friends, trying to help them understand dementia. You know, your short-term memory is gone. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing something new, you've got all them memories that are trying to go somewhere, but that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So it'll start to impact on other parts of the brain. I'm no you know, I'm no medical scientist or anything, but it's just from what I've noticed. So for us, with mummy's type of Alzheimer's, you know, the events wouldn't work. Whereas I know I've got friends who, you know, that is what they live for. You know, each Tuesday and Thursday, they take their granny or the, you know, the person they care for, you know, for a game of bingo in the community, and they love it. So I think, yeah, you just have to see what goes with your particular type of illness that they've got. Yeah. For me, social media has been a blessing. I mean, the resources I have at my hands is unbelievable. From music, you know, I mean, I'm sure you're aware, everybody must be aware how music really, really makes a massive impact on people living with this illness. You know, I can get any music from any era at the touch of a button. I can bring up films from, you know, when films were first came out in black and white, Charlie Chaplin films, old photographs which my family have uploaded, we can watch, we can look at. So yeah, technology has been a great support. To be honest, I don't know what I would have done without it, really. And just think people lived with this without this technology. You know, it can be quite heartbreaking. Yeah. I also tried, there's a lot of organizations, dementia organizations, Alzheimer's organizations, they have forums. Mm-hmm. For me, I stopped going on because they were very upsetting for me to listen to other people's stories. And I hope that doesn't sound too harsh, but my focus has to be on mummy. And, you know, by me reading other people's stories, it was just so emotionally distressing. I would always send a message saying, please, you know, here's my email address, drop me a few lines. I just couldn't actively take part in them. But you know what? They're all there. Mm-hmm. People, go out there, have a look what's available and see what's best for you. That's my best advice.
I'm really happy you brought that up as well, because something that we are looking to do with the company is there are numerous Facebook groups and caregiving support groups and etc.
What do you pick? Yeah, far a lot.
Exactly. There's so many. And I think what you see with some of them, obviously not to generalize, is there is a lot of situations where folks will share a troubling experience, for example, that's been really hard on them. And a lot of people will echo that. And that's where the conversation ends. Instead of, you know, this was a tough situation, someone shares, I've had something similar. This is a resource that helped me. Or, you know, when I'm dealing with something similar, this is what gets me through it. And adding some value to other folks isn't something that I've seen in a lot. And it does become, I would say, this almost pit where a lot of, it's hard to
negative. Yeah. Yeah. I was a few months ago now, and this poor lady, she was desperate. Mm-hmm. But the forum she was on didn't offer a solution. It was just simply a chat room, and the only thing people could say, oh, we're so sorry, hope you get through it. That's not enough. You know, this lady she went on the next day saying, oh, sorry, I just needed to vent, because a lot of time it's all about, again, getting your voice heard. You need to vent. You need to scream at someone and say, this is happening to me. So I get that. But yeah, you're very, very right. You know, we need to identify and find a resolution, you know, so that, yeah, I mean, hopefully, I mean, you guys, maybe it's something to work on. But yeah, I found there's far too many resources out there trying to achieve something which is not really identified.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. I think I'm to be conscious of time, I would love to ask you, I would say one final question that you could perhaps provide a lot of insight in for the audience as well about
I'll
this.
try.
Do you think there's any large misconceptions about caregiving for individuals living with dementia or Alzheimer's, or anything that you would like to clear up about the experience?
Gosh, I don't know really, because as I've explained, I go off piste a bit. You
True.
know, I cut off.
Mhm.
I have no care in the world of what anybody thinks of me or what I do or how I go about things. I just do what's best for me and my family. So I'm probably not aware of a lot of the misconceptions that go on.
Mhm.
So no, I mean, what I would like to say is that we are here.
Mhm.
We are here. We
Mhm.
are living with this, and a lot of people need to be aware of it. You know, another a very quickly story. I was speaking to someone online who we've connected with, and she says she looks after her daddy, her pa, her father, and she'll always look outside to make sure there's no neighbours around before she takes the father out in the car.
Mhm.
And I said, why? And she said, because there's something I feel embarrassed about that.
Mhm.
And you know what? I thought, wow, that's really telling. It's
Mhm.
something I haven't experienced. But I thought, gosh, there must be a perception.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know, but you know, it's heartbreaking. It really is, for that poor girl to have to deal with what she does and then have to go and check there's no one watching, as if it's some sort of cruel disease. Yeah, but I don't hear them because I cut off. Why would I need to? I don't do negativity, and why
Mhm.
should I?
Mhm. No, thank you for sharing that story.
No, 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 it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and for
totally.
your time. I think this was a fantastic interview, and I hope everyone who's listening got some really good feedback, understood resilience in this situation,
Good.
and can get some learning from this. So I'm going to stop the recording here.
Lovely.